angas na maglingkod sa kapwa't kaibigan. Gopalakas, alagaan natin si Inang Kalikasan. Halika na totoo sa kalikasan at kapwa-tao. Isa buhay natin ito. Gopala, Gopala, Kalusugan, pangkalikasan. Gopalakas.
Blessed good morning to everybody.
Hello, everyone again. We're here.
It's Saturday again, so it's a wonderful day. And the surf is up where we are, so I hope everybody's good, I know we all have concerns regarding still. We always thought a year ago that the pandemic will just breeze through us and we'll manage it. But yet, at this point in time of our life, I know we all have concerns. Not only because of the pandemic, but also because of other factors that has to do with, what are we going to do? Is this a sure hit?
Yeah, how are we coping?
How are we coping with this? And how our children or our neighbors or all of our friends are coping with it? Considering that there are still the dynamics taking place. Because what was in our mind earlier was, after maybe a short period of time, kakayanin na natin, go back to normal, no? That has been the mindset. But we should always look back to history. In all of yung mga events like this, that there was a worldwide pandemic, and how long and how many years.
Naku, matagal-tagal.
But one thing in history though, what changed is, ang bilis kumalat kagad. Whereas in history, the past, dahan-dahan kumalat in different continents.
Kasi we're more mobile now.
Yes, because of the travel. And
air
people
travel,
are all,
from
all over.
country, jump to different countries.
Yes, and it was so quick, So,
and we can't even trace it now.
Oo.
again, forward-looking, we always had to rely, or we were thinking in a mindset that getting a vaccine out would take care of many things. But yet we find that most of the vaccines today that is being,
Kulang-kulang pa no?
it's being, kumbaga, we need to have our jabs already, just to protect us. But it is done in haste. Kita nyo, nagbabago yung variants. So now, just as they come up with a certain vaccine, then they realize, oops, there's a new variant already.
Oo, 4 na nga raw
So that means the vaccines are work in progress. It's not going to be like just because you had a jab in your arm and you're fine. No.
Kasi nga, efficacy nga rin, it's not 100%. Sinasabi is 90%, 95%, and
Some
some
much less.
lower.
Oo.
Kung nasama ka dun sa 5% na hindi tinalaban ng vaccination, hindi ba?
There's
So
always
there's
that
a risk.
percentage.
Oo.
And
There's a risk.
the percentage is always wild. You are the one at risk as far as casualty is concerned.
Yeah. Yes. So, napakahirap po pa rin ng ating situation, pero let's not
Lose hope.
lose
Lose
hope,
hope.
and let's not
Lose hope,
stop doing what we can do at the
Yes.
moment,
Yes.
hindi ba?
Even on our own personal basis. I say again, if you examine everything that we were taught in our country, for example, the only thing that we can do right now is to quarantine. Wear masks, wash our hands, have very clean habits, and avoid crowds. But we cannot continuously do this simply because, people need to work. This is a very big concern.
Gotta do what we gotta do.
We have to work, but yet we need to be protecting ourselves. Or we cannot be, let's say, we have healthy immune system, but yet we are, di ba nalalaman natin ngayon na, you're asymptomatic.
Oh,
Oh, I
yun.
don't even know you're sick.
Yeah, you don't even know you're spreading it. You know.
Yeah, so we have to really take care of ourselves. As Myra Muriel says there, take care, you guys. Thank you, everybody.
Health and joy always.
Follow
You know.
that.
We all have to take care now, but future looking. In the
Yes.
earlier shows a year ago, because we know, we launched Gopalakas around this time.
Yeah, we relaunched it.
Now we had to
that time.
relaunch it because of the pandemic. But now, the issues confronting us is the same thing. There were solutions being put forward by our government, wherein to depopulate the urban centers because it's very difficult to handle a pandemic in a highly urbanized location where people don't have work, people need to go home to the province, hindi ba yung balik probinsya? But yet we find that this is not even being mentioned.
Oo nga, nawala sa news na.
This thread or this story nawala sa news. And then, because what the provincial areas were confronted with, how are we going to handle people who are migrating back to the province? The fact that their intent was to go to the city or leave for overseas to find jobs. There is nothing in the province that will attract people. And why has this not been put together as part of a master plan to depopulate the population in the urban centers? And we also have urban areas in many of the provinces. Like here in La Union, you have San Fernando. And many of the towns are beginning to be urbanized too. And the issue here is we have not looked into a plan that would make it so that we have to depopulate our urban centers. And there are no provisions yet. No one yet, as far as national government, is thinking in terms of let's really move people out. Roads are already there. That's wonderful.
Yes.
Katulad driving to La Union right now, on the right time, 3 oras, nandito ka na from Metro Manila. Or less, So it only means that accessibility or transport is not a difficulty anymore because that has been the emphasis of our government to build roads. But yet at the same time, if you look at agriculture in the news today, nakikita nyo na, wow, tagilid. Cost of food is going high. That means availability of the basic necessities as far as food is concerned is a thing
Not
that
sure.
every household is concerned with.
Yeah.
Kasi mahal eh.
Basic
Kailangan magtanim pa rin
survival.
tayo.
Right.
Oo,
Diba?
tanim ng
Tapos,
food.
next one is, right now, in the Cordillera region, I hope everybody's following the news. Siyempre, ang Cordillera region, yan ang production area ng gulay eh. Naka-lockdown sila.
Kasi may cluster cases na marami.
May ibang variant.
Talagang,
So these are
Ang
things
bilis
that
kumalat
we have to
with
keep in
new
mind all the time.
variants.
Thus, another thing that's taking place, that's in the news also, is that, our gross, alam mo yung
gross domestic product.
domestic product is
GDP.
beginning to, kumbaga it will hit double digits. It's in the upper single digit numbers right now. And that means there's no productivity in our domestic. So that means people who are reliant on this, meaning ito yung mga factories, ito yung mga manufacturing, lahat yan.
Kasi may isang phenomenon na yung bumagsak ang mga resorts, restaurants which consume a lot of the veggies and a lot of the agricultural products. Kumaga people are staying home, eating home-cooked meals.
Right. Plus, raw products. Or products.
Raw materials.
Raw materials or things like, let's say, if you're into the manufacturing, most of your machines are imported. It comes from other countries, especially the main supplier is China. Sila rin, nako-contract din yung kanilang situation.
Ay, lahat contraction.
So that means, again, we should consider the setting. What did we do? We cannot be looking in a very short term. again, you go back to what, on my side, I would always present, look, we have to go back to going back to basics.
Right.
Which means going back to nature.
Going back to
Yes.
nature.
So yung update po ni Sir Toby that's the current events, current news status natin ngayon, which is very kinda
Fuzzy.
fuzzy.
Hindi sigurado eh.
Oo. But itong ang topic natin for to do this weekend is about hope, hindi ba?
Yes.
Because we are receiving protection from Mother Nature, Mother Earth. Yan ang ating pag-asa, no?
Parang in life, pagka naghihirap tayo, balik tayo kay Mami. Mami, tulong.
Yes. Actually, I have some quotes here from the Indians, yung Native American Indians, because they're very much connected with Mother
yes.
Earth. So what they say is always very profound, you know. Sabi nila, no one owns the water, no one owns the land, no one owns the oceans, no one owns the sand. These are given by our mother. The planet provides for free, only by the hands of the greedy. Does the earth require a fee? Okay? Yan, kung sinasabi nila na yan, libre talaga by nature, you know? Kaya lang biglang merong sumisingil ngayon para sa tubig, para sa
For
ilaw.
everything.
One thing nice
Para-
about the American Indians, because that's their view of nature, they never take what they're not going
Yes.
to use.
They're
And if
very-
they do take something, they make sure to use every part of it
Yes.
talaga.
Very
Nothing goes to
respectful.
waste.
Yes.
Oo.
It's because that's how nature works. Eh. For
Yes.
example, in a natural setting, alam nyo, most of the viruses that we're encountering today, saan galing yan? Galing naman sa nature yan eh. It's there. It's been there.
Yes.
But yet, it's locked in, kumbaga in a natural setting.
Balance.
Meron
May
hindi ba
balance.
tinatawag silang carbon sequestration?
Right.
Kumbaga, yung mga trees nagsisequester ng carbon dioxide.
Yes. Oo.
Similarly, yung mga forests ang nagsisequester ng mga virus
Oo.
para i-lock in sila sa
Yeah.
environment. Hindi kumalat sa human population.
Oo.
Yes,
Balance
tsaka
to protect
alalahanin
us.
nyo, let's say if you're in a forest setting, in a natural forest, the multitude of different living entities living together, magkakasama sila, but yet you don't hear about, may outbreak sa mga ibon na. Yan, magkaka-problema
epidemic.
sa mga marine life na kasi sa mga fish ponds natin. Pero sa natural setting, sa karagatan,
in the natural
wala kang
Yes.
biglang,
wala.
Ba't walang nangyayari doon? Walang mga fish kill sa gitna ng gubat, ng
dagat.
Ng dagat.
Oo.
Tapos walang massive deaths of certain species in the forest.
Yeah.
You know?
Yung mga fish kill na yan, all those problems, when you trace it,
It's all human factor eh.
man.
Nasa
Yeah.
fish pen, nasa fish
Human factor
pond.
siya eh.
you know?
It's the way
Yeah.
we think, and because we're so disconnected to the natural setting, everything we think on the limitation of our capacity, and we try to share such information. Oh, itong dalubhasa, itong scientist, alam na alam niya to. But yet we find our universities are graduating a lot of scientists. There's so many of them eh. But yet we're faced with these basic things on we're in a survival setting right now. But yet you need to, the whole idea is to go back to the nature again kasi ganito yung problema. But yet, at the rate we're going, we're still destroying many of the natural forests.
Yeah.
Actually,
in
even
huge
with COVID-19,
quantity.
hindi ba kaya pumasok sa human population dahil yung mga wild animals
Yes.
na binebenta sa marketplace ang pinagmulan ng mga ganyang
They
sakit.
take them out of their natural
Yes, and then we
place, yeah.
consume those wild animals, no? So we handle, we market those animals, and therefore nagkakaroon tayo ng exposure sa mga ganyan.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
can we take a break and say hello to our
Ang dami
Everybody.
nun,
Oh.
yeah,
dami.
our viewers?
Si-
Hello to Virgilio Enriquez all the way from
Zambales.
From Zambales.
Yeah.
Okay, first let's start with Ruben Lontok and Kalindi Relova. saying good morning. Of course, Muriel is around to join us, wishing us well. Mary Salazar from Baguio.
Oh, be careful there, huh, Mary?
Oh, yes. Si Angel Gonzalo.
Cavite.
Yes.
Yeah,
From
he's
Cavite. And we have two
Francis Mina.
Francis.
And two Francis Go also.
Francis
Yeah.
Mina and Francis Go, yes. And of course, the Mainigo tribe
Tribe of La Union.
wishing us
Dito.
to a
Wishing
healthy,
us
well, okay.
And,
Irene Evangelista, good morning to you. Matt Resurrection from Silang Cavite. And of course, Virgilio Enriquez from Zambales. Thank you for joining us. We're so happy that you're, letting us know you're there. And so, we're speaking to some people na live, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
And ayan, si Cynthia Abmerga. Good
She's from
morning
Lukban,
din.
right?
From Lukban. So I would like to add another quote from Albert Einstein that people always regard to be a very intelligent, intellectual person. Sabi niya, look deep into nature and then you will understand things. Okay, so talagang he's a scientist, no? And yet, meron siyang perception na marami tayong maiintindihan if we are connected with nature, attuned to nature, marami tayong maiintindihan.
Kaya lang
No?
ngayon, everyone is very removed.
Yes.
From staying in the city situation.
And in times,
We've
the
lost
word,
our touch na
the
in
word
nature.
remote, when you
Yeah.
think of remote, well, you tend to
Malayo.
think malayo. You think of the province, very remote. Wala lahat ng nakasanayan ko. Something that we have to also consider, there's a whole young generation, 15 and under, the children. How will they adjust and how will they adapt? Most of them are growing up in an environment that is so superficial. Everything is in their phones, everything
Lalo
that they
na ngayon,
handle,
they're stuck
especially
in their
now.
homes with
And you
their
know
screens.
how it is? You see, normally at the age of 16, 17, a person tends to know the kind of crowd he wants to hang out.
May social growth.
May social growth na siya, may pananaw na siya na itong course ko, this is what I'm going to take. Oh, this is how I will take care of my body. And this is how I can share it with others and grow with others. But because of the changes that's taking place, wherein the social fiber of every, of young generation now, na-disrupt.
Ang dami.
Disrupted,
Kahit naman the old ones who can't go out
And many of
much.
those who are much senior too. But
So-
those who are senior, we live a life already.
Yeah.
We live a full
May
life.
foundation na tayo.
So there's a general walang knowledge about nature yung young generation and also a lack of appreciation lalo because if you don't understand how things work in nature, how can you
You can't
appreciate it,
appreciate,
hindi
yeah.
ba? So this is actually we have to encourage man's exposure, the younger generation to actually understand nature.
Yeah. You cannot understand that by just watching or looking.
Yes, sinabi
You
nga,
have to
not
feel
via
that.
books.
You
Hindi
have
na
to
via
understand,
books.
for
Not
example,
even through National Geographic.
in the forest system, for example, no? Di ba? Now there's places that promotes forest bathing.
Oh,
You bathe in the goodness of the forest. What is it in the forest? There's so many types of compounds, right? That the trees
Exuded
would
by the trees.
for example, or the earth itself. There's so many components. Kaya nga minsan pag nag-forest bathe ka or the people before, di ba wala silang mga sapatos, nakapaalang sila.
Yeah.
Oo, yung mga...
Down to earth talaga.
Meron ng poem, may statement si Ralph Waldo Emerson. I walked amongst the trees and I left feeling taller than the trees. Kasi
sarap,
hindi man
no?
feeling proud siya, but he felt he was enriched
Yes.
by that experience.
And he was welcome and embraced by it.
Yes,
This is the nature of
Nice.
this is actually the nature of the forest systems. Then you have the green and then you have the blue, the ocean. Di ba? Yan, iba rin yan. All 60% of the oxygen in the world we live in comes from the ocean.
Yeah.
Only 40% comes from the forest,
Oh.
So this is so crucial. Again, we should all be forward-looking here. How will such situation change? It should be changing our outlook and not
Yes.
insist on what we already think is necessary for us to get by. Because this pandemic, just as in any type of sinasabi nila, gera to ng against the virus eh. Parang gera to eh. Yun ang nangyayari. So, the impact of this is not going to be in a short term.
Yeah.
Yes.
We really have to make changes, no?
You know, here in the Philippines, for example, if you like reading history, especially in the country, the peaks of our economy, the Filipinos, it took place with that generation right after the war, when there was rebuilding. So, pagdating ng 60s, 70s, ang ganda ng ating ekonomiya.
Oo, mataas yung value ng
Ang ganda ng
currency
ekonomiya natin noon. But no pa
Nagsikap
pumasok na
lahat.
yung mga 80s, late 80s especially, nagbago na yung generation. There's a whole new generation that's coming up where it's a generation where parang medyo may comfort, everything is
Nasanay na sa
given,
comfort,
everything is
oh.
so. Tapos especially
Always
today,
easier.
today it's a lot more. Kaya nga you need to be thinking, looking forward that how are we going to make it so that our children would have the same resiliency, just so that they can put together what needs to get done. Because every generation would have a contribution, needs to have a contribution to what is in our environment and how do we live, how do we survive. You know, food production, for example. Now, we all know, kaya nga ang mahal ng pagkain sa atin ngayon eh. Ng news ngayon, sinasabi, kailangan na lagyan ng regulation, yung presyo ng pagkain. It's all in the news today. And you will find ang mahal-mahal ng pagkain. But yet, during the beginning of the pandemic, maraming plantitas and plantitos, people were beginning their gardens. I hope by now, yung mga gardens nyo, gubat na yung itsura. Kung tinuloy nyo yung
Tsaka
ginagawa
sana
ninyo.
nagtanim kayo ng
Nagiging
food,
sustainable na siya. Kasi in nature,
nasira ng
everything is
bagyo.
sustainable. You know?
Gulay.
But that was a good season to plant actually, you know. Ang daming nagjo-join at bumabati sa atin. Dapat batiin rin natin. Andyan si Dixie Palmos, Luntian Karihan from Angeles City. Of course, Cynthia Omerga, Vina Pasqua, Bert. Okay. And
Yes, Herbert and the beekeepers. Tama.
I see.
Okay.
Our
We
beekeepers.
always need beekeepers. That helps in our food production.
And then
Tara Gallardo, good morning. Jen Shiva, hello to all. Yes,
si
and then,
Mi Maluya.
yeah,
Okay,
good morning.
Good morning.
So anyway, you know, for example, malunggay.
Yeah, speaking of malunggay, we should start planting that, no?
I don't know whether people planted one malunggay tree in their house or they considered
Yes.
planting a malunggay tree in their house.
No.
Why?
Please do
It's a
that.
miracle tree.
It's
It-
full of vitamins, minerals. You can eat the leaves, the pods, the flowers, pati root nga niya.
It's
Pwede
also a
bang
filtration
makain yung root?
system.
Baka mamatay yung tree.
You
But
can filter your water.
yes,
If there's a vacant lot, gamitin nyo na yung lupa, taniman lang ng malunggay. Kahit hindi nyo na diligan, mabubuhay.
yeah, it's drought resistant. It's really a magical tree kasi ang dami niyang uses eh, not just food. You know the seeds.
Yes.
If you take that, well, if kids have worms, that's good to take out the worms, no? But it's also very good for bringing down your high blood pressure.
Oo.
Yeah, it's
Aba,
ang dami niyang uses.
pumutok yan sa sa online ngayon. Meron pa silang mga powders, mga ganon. Hindi ba naging ano yan sa health food
Yeah, for prostate.
worldwide?
Even the oils.
Lumabas yung importansya.
Oo.
Parang sa atin yun galing, di ba? Yung mga ganyan, dami-dami lang natin sa bakuran dati, you know?
But yet you see,
Kahit naman ng oil nun,
simple.
pwedeng pang ilaw.
Simple lang. One
Simple.
tree. One
Yeah.
tree.
One tree will
You can
give you
do
all
so
your
much.
nutrients
This
and
is
your
this is
medicine.
the beauty of nature. See, there's so much, but yet we begin to think of the Botica, Mercury, all of these places.
Bibili yung mga
Pag
supplements, nakabote,
but
you
at
know?
this point in time, we should always be thinking. We should always be, kasi ang issue is how to boost my immune system.
Yeah.
Yes.
At saka
yes.
sa food security, no? And for your health, yeah.
because
Oo,
most of the
talaga.
food that comes into the city, yun nga, comes
Wrapped
into
in.
the city,
Oo,
is
hindi na
supplied.
siya fresh.
The reason I speak to you on this is because I'm trying to push it, you know, kasi yung news parehas eh. Yung balita eh. A year ago, hindi natin alam ang gagawin. Okay, siyempre, sige. A year later, alam na natin kung how to deal with the pandemic. But yet, you find we are still in the same dilemma. But now,
And things
the
could be
reason is,
worse.
we are so concerned about it because the economic impact is now
Napakabigat.
being felt.
Oo.
You know? And we cannot sustain our economy, our way of life, at the rate it's going. Kaya yun ang concern ng ating mga leadership. Kaya kailangan ibukas natin yung ating manufacturing and all of these things. You know? But yet, we cannot just be, kumbaga iba-band-aid mo na lang.
Yeah.
Kailangan tumingin tayo, tumanaw na tayo ng mas mahaba. Alalahanin nyo, ang Pilipinas, our country is gifted eh. We are in a tropical country. Hindi tayo nagkukulang sa tubig. Sobra nga yung tubig. Hindi tayo nagkukulang sa ganda ng panahon. It's just our ability to make our adaptation and adjust, but not just we as individual thinking also and contributing, but also as a whole, as a nation, as a community. You know, we always have to be a part of this process. Just as in nature, everybody contributes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oo.
We really have to do something. Let's not be
And
complacent.
the solutions are quite simple, and every person can do something like what you said about the malunggay. There was a
Basic needs eh.
couple who formulated products using this because they started using it first as individuals for tsaa. You know, for tsaa.
Yeah,
And
malunggay
then,
tea is
yeah,
really good.
oo.
Oo.
So, yun lang, inaano nila. And actually now, mga tao kahit for breastfeeding, yung mga, they make cookies with malunggay, hindi ba? So,
Although for breast milk, it's best as in soup.
in soups. Okay, yan. So, you know, if we can have a project with people, let's plant malunggay, more malunggay plant. Kasi sa ano yan, binibili yan sa palengke pa, pupunta ka pa sa palengke. But if you have a tree nearby, in an empty lot, you
Yeah.
know, this could be a project for your barangay, you know.
And this morning, that's what I had for breakfast eh. The
Malunggay.
malunggay leaves. Kasi last week, nagkaroon ng ulan, nabali yung puno. And then, we got
Hindi
all
naman
the
yung buong
leaves,
puno,
so
yung
many
sanga lang.
leaves. Yeah, you dry the leaves, and then you can just make it gisa with oil, tomato, toyo, and a little sugar. And it comes out, it's nice to sprinkle over your food, no?
Yes,
I had it with my
topping.
sinangag. Sarap.
Toppings, hindi ba? So, these are very simple things. Okay, sabi nga ni Matt Resurrection, farmers, who suddenly have the opportunity to sell their lands their lands are disposing of their farms to get hold millions of pesos for the education of their children, for building bigger homes, and for purchasing appliances and other amenities of modern civilization. Naku,
Yeah, that's a
yan,
sad
oo.
story, ha?
Yung parang yung value ng land, hindi nila na-appreciate. Mas gusto
Yes.
pa nila yung malaking bahay kesa dun sa lupa.
So it is, again, you go back.
Yeah.
You go back in history here. We have universities that produce brainy people with regards to how do we make it so that our food is secure. But today, we have not faced any of that type of security. Kumbaga, time will tell you eh.
Yeah, it's too bad because we have a friend who's a very good businessman. Siya naman, he's selling off his
His investments.
investments and everything.
Oh.
And
He's closing
buying
shop
land.
and he's buying
Yes,
land in the
because land is
countryside.
what's gonna make us
And he said, the
survive.
only way I could foresee, this person is a very successful businessman. Ito ay nasa mga league ng mga malalaking mga hanap na mga companies na nagsasara. And he was like, sabi niya, no, he moved to La Union almost a year ago. Sabi niya, it's so hard to be hanging out in this place in Manila, contained in one of the most expensive condominiums.
Yeah.
And he said, that's not the way to live.
Yeah, especially now, these farmers are thinking, oh, I'm gonna sell my land, I'm gonna make a building. Even in construction, it's very hard to get materials now.
Yes.
There's so many things
Yeah,
that are not
there's
coming
so
in
many.
anymore.
Kaya nga, for this year, I always would say, back to basics. Kailangan madama natin na let's not try to cling on to something that you
Our
don't
old
know.
ideas
Things may change.
may not work out
It may
anymore.
change for the worse. We don't know how is this thing playing out,
Hindi ba may trend? People work hard. Like sa mga showbiz people, they work very hard. Businessmen work very hard. Then when they have all the money, they want to retire in a farm
Oh, yes.
Yan.
Yan,
Di ba yung mga ano ka guys,
You can
yung mga
actually live at the farm to
they
begin
have
with.
so many actors and kahit nga si Goma si Richard
Right.
Gomez, may farm siya hindi
may
ba?
bees pa siya
Oo,
ngayon.
meron pa siyang bees, hindi ba? So, basically, they realize, ang hirap pala ng buhay na stress na sila. They look for a simple life, living in the farm, they find joy. Si Richard Gomez, nag-harvest siya ng pechay. Tuwang-tuwa siya, pinapakita niya yung vlog sa vlog niya na nag-harvest siya at pinamimigay naman niya. Hindi niya
Yeah.
pinagkakakitaan, you know. So, there's happiness in doing these things, you know, because
And it's healthier.
It's healthier.
And one thing is the choice that you're doing, that you have embraced, you take control of certain things. Food especially is very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Alam nyo, this past year nga, sabi nila nature had a chance to kind of recover. And this is a fact. Alam nyo, dito sa amin sa La Union, napawikan programs. Kasi ano ngayon nesting and hatching time. You know, this year, kasi nawala yung mga turista for the past year, we had almost, I think we're up to almost 60 nests already.
Oo.
Double of the norm. And then many people are asking us whether, is this because there's less people on the beaches?
Less
Yes.
We're
ingay.
just quiet.
Kasi naman maingay yung mga sounds, no? Natakot na yung mga pawikan pumunta sa shore. Kaya they found, tahimik ngayon. Sige, pwede na kami mag-lay ng eggs. We're safe, you know?
Anyway, let's
Anyway, I
again.
hope the
Ang dami
farmers
na
don't
naman,
sell their
mga-
land.
Yeah, Harry
Bati.
Yumol from
Magtanim
Ilocos
na lang
Norte,
kayo.
J Resurrection.
Si Radhika
There you
Dasi
go.
from
And his
Carcar.
Katrina Resurrection, he used to work for the Department of Agriculture. I think he still is, you know.
Yes. Then
And
we have
with Paul Dison, magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Again, thank you for
may suggestion siya ng malunggay vegetarian dilis. Which
Pwede
that's
raw.
what I was
Yan,
talking
yung
about
toppings
this morning.
niya
Oh.
using
That's what I had for breakfast.
crispy dilis.
Yeah.
Very nice tip here. Thank you very much, Paul.
Tsaka, you know, another thing aside from malunggay, no, I would suggest people plant langka. You know, when we think of langka, we just think of the fruit, diba?
Oo.
But
yes.
really, langka is a very good tree. In fact, in Thailand, they consider that the tree of good fortune.
Wow.
Oo. They plant it talaga sa mga bahay nila. In most Thai homes, they have it. You know, the seeds are also edible. Even the young leaves pala, pwede siya sa
pwede.
mga salad.
Talbos ng langka. Yan, oh.
either
At
so.
saka in Batanes, they use the langka leaves to serve some foods. Di ba tayo, we use puro dahon ng saging. Pero in Batanes, they use it talaga when you buy something, they put it on langka
In
leaves.
fact, yung langka nga I saw parang ano na yun parang sinasabi na substitute pork. Anong tawag yun? Parang hinimay na pork yun ang pinapalabas nila
When
Oo.
it's boiled.
When it's boiled
Yeah.
and actually it's processed as parang pork something.
Also,
you
that's
know?
what we use to make a sandwich spread.
Yes.
Para we call it the Save the Chicken sandwich.
Oo,
Yeah.
yan. It's very,
you
very
know,
good tree.
When
And
you
you
go,
know what?
when you
Wait,
go back
can
to basics, kasi what do? It applies to many things in our life.
Yeah. Well, one basic thing about langka, another thing is, in Thailand, di ba there are Buddhist monks?
Yes.
And they all wear these yellow, orange robes. It's the langka pala they use to dye that cloth.
Orange?
Yeah.
Nagiging orange yung cloth?
Yeah, kasi madilaw yung yung wood ng langka.
oo nga.
In fact, in Cebu
Oo
pala
nga.
they use that as a wood for their guitars.
Yes.
Kasi ang ganda daw ng
Manilaw-nilaw.
sound
Oo.
niya.
Okay, nice.
There's
Nice
a lot to be
know.
gotten
Ayan,
from
sinabi
these
na nga ni,
natural things.
just this knowledge, sinabi nga ni Aristotle, in all things of nature, there is something of the marvelous.
Diba?
Imagine. So,
Oo.
kaya
Lovely.
amazed tayo.
Wonderful.
Di ba? Yung blessings and protection na binibigay
Yeah,
ng Mother
plus,
Earth.
you know, this morning I was with my farmer, no? Kasi we're fixing our irrigation system kasi iinit na yung panahon no?
Yeah.
yeah.
So in preparation, you know, so that we were able to kind of save water. Tapos sinasabi ko sa kanya, tingnan nyo, tayo, pag nagtanim tayo ng gulay, kailangan natin lagay lahat ng fertilizer, lahat ng ayusin natin, ano? But tingnan niyo yung kagubatan, tingnan niyo yung palibot natin. Nagpe-fertilize ka ba ng forestries?
Hindi.
Hindi. Tapos
That's
lahat
already built
ng
in.
halamang gubat, yung mga kinagigiliwan ng maraming ating mga kababayan na who's collecting plants right now. Yung
Yung
sabi
mga
mo,
vines.
yung mga vines na monstera, lahat yan. Nagugulat ka na, ay, tapos yung mga gabi na nandun sa amin, yung galyang, for example,
Ang
You
laki
know.
ng dahon.
yung mga dahon ay
That
lalaki.
big.
Halos mahigit 1 metro yung mga laki. And yet, this pinaggigiliwan ng maraming tao. Na kasi ang mahal daw na binebenta, but yet,
It just grows wild.
Wild lang.
Sa amin, libo-libo ho yan. Kasi, alalahanin nyo, in nature, and again, you go back, yung hangin na ating nilalanghap. If you live in a highly urban area, urbanized location, kakaunti ang puno, ang impact sa katawan ng tao niyan, at saka sa isip ng isang tao. Alam nyo, your health will struggle because it lives in an artificial environment. And your body requires the elements like air, water, food from the earth. It requires it, but it has to conform to what may requirement kasi siya. It has to conform to the natural setting that the world is providing us. But yet, when we create artificial means to live and exist, we disconnect ourselves to the natural setting, and then it affects us physically and mentally.
Creates all these
Yes.
problems for
Yes.
us.
So this is something to think about, and we have discussed this time and time again, because I am emphasizing this today because what are we going to do this next year?
Yeah, we've got to
How are we
get
going
our
to plan
act
this?
together
Because
na.
we were excused not to know what's going to happen a year ago.
Yeah.
Because
Oo,
nag-aral
year
tayo,
two na to,
natuto
year
tayo
two.
But this time, we have a short-term goal, we have to have a medium-term goal, and then we have to have a long-term goal. Because it's not only the pandemic. We also have climate change coming upon us. We
Yeah.
also have the natural disaster taking place. But
Yeah.
mind you,
We
if
also
you
have
learn
people-
to be aware of this, you can adapt You can, kumbaga kung may bagyo, ano gagawin mo? How do you adjust? How do you adapt? May ganun yan For as long as we're not
Bagyo,
doing
dapat
it,
sanay na tayo dyan.
for example, hindi ba, there was an issue in Marikina recently, si Typhoon Ulysses.
Oo.
Besides the pandemic, binaha na naman sila. 10 years ago,
sabihin,
nilubog
nagbara
na
pala
sila.
nung
But we
kanilang
still
ilog.
insist on trying to, stay and kumbaga band-aid ang ilalagay natin na solution. Hindi magbabago yan. It's gonna get worse.
Sabi niya, desiltation lang daw ang kailangan nila.
Yeah, no.
mangyari
It's
dyan.
it's not how it's gonna work.
That's why
There's a
low
big
point
picture behind it,
talagang babahain
We
ka.
have some inputs from our listeners again. Oy, si Gora Johnson, batiin
Hello.
natin.
Oh, it's from
Gora.
Hawaii.
Hello,
Yeah.
Gora, yes. And Sam Miguel. Okay.
Sam
And Sam
Miguel.
Miguel. Okay, sabi ni
Okay.
Katrino, sustainability ay di po lamang dapat iasa sa policy ng government. Need po na matutunan ng bawat farmer to live within their means. Actually, yes. Yung,
Not just the farmers,
yes,
everybody.
everybody.
Oo.
Kasi, meron na-stress or meron nga nag-suicide. This is a story from 2008 when the economic crisis, even in America, hit them really hard. There was, a very good IT person. He succeeded in his business, brought his family there, had a 5-bedroom house. But one day, he killed his wife, his mother-in-law, and his 2 children. Shot them and then committed suicide because of the economic crisis. Losing his job, losing his income, and then paano nila mababayaran yung mga utang, paano nila mababayaran yung mga, bahay nila and everything. So really, yung living within your means is a very good policy. Because if we are living on borrowed money,
Or
we
beyond
are
our means.
beyond our
Always
means,
beyond
this is gonna cause us a lot of
Or
stress.
let's say another outlook towards it is living below your means.
Oh, that's
Pwede.
even
That's
better.
even better.
That's nice.
There's such thing as simplicity, and that simplicity should not be something you should be afraid of. Actually, the more simpler the situation is, the more
Yeah.
you have time to that is more deeper and more introspective. This is something that we all have to make it so that this is okay. Kumbaga, right now, the tendency that in how we live our lives is that we live in a fast lane. Nasanay tayo na gano'n. Ang bilis lahat. That's why mabilis lahat. We're so used to speed eh. That's why your internet, G5 na ngayon. Kasi mas gusto natin, mas mabilis eh. Yung ganun ba? And we cannot slow down. But the pace we're going,
pera, mabilis, mawala.
not only that, but the capacity of our body to be able to deliver, to cope with such speed of changes. But yet the changes is just taking place with you. But in nature, it takes time. Katulad din sinabi mong quote. So but yet in nature, it's more sustainable.
Lao Tzu, sabi niya, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished.
And everything is in the right
Merong
place.
timing ang nature. Yes.
But yet you will find, pag may namatay sa, kunyari, there's a bird that dies or an animal that dies in the jungle. Balikan mo yan in 3 or 4 days, wala na yun.
Minsan one day lang.
Minsan one day, wala na eh. Ano na, kumbaga, dismembered na, kinalas na nila lahat.
Decomposed.
Oo.
Eaten up.
And then there's such a thing, you know?
So nature teaches patience. Even
Exactly.
growing trees, growing plants, kailangan maghintay
May
tayo,
timing,
tapos
yes.
magbunga. So we should really learn the ways of nature and actually, go with it, you know?
Our natural creation, there's a creator behind it. Eh.
Yes.
Someone's in charge,
Yes.
in control.
Can I read this from Black Elk? Sabi niya, all things are the works of the Great Spirit. He is within all things, trees, grass, rivers, mountains, animals, and people. Even more important, He is also above all these things and peoples.
Wonderful.
Pwede tayong mag-relax.
Kasi hindi lang pwede
Somebody's in
natin
charge.
appreciate si Mother Nature without thinking about Father God. Magkasama sila. So we have to thank both our Mother and our Father.
Kaya hindi dapat tayo naglo-lose hope, di ba?
Yes.
Someone's in control.
Yes.
Yeah.
Si Abraham Lincoln, sabi ni Katrina, meron din daw sinabi, the greatest final art of the future
Fine art, yeah.
fine art of the future would be making a comfortable living from a small parcel of land. What a great challenge.
And
Actually, that's really true.
This
A
is
little
ancient.
bit of land is
Actually,
all
it's
we
an
need,
ancient
really.
knowledge, yan. It's just, but it's so much of a fact because Abraham Lincoln came from the time when everybody was living in the countryside. Basically, only the cities.
Rural countryside.
The cities were for trading. Kumbaga the urban, that's where they sell their goods and trading. Kaya yan naman ang trading post yan eh. Ganun naman ang setting nung araw. But yet, because now we happen to shifted our priorities to building factories, and that becomes a whole urban setting. Nag-change yung dynamics to the point where we are all basically, relying on the urban centers for everything we need. And that is not going to be sustainable at all. It's so difficult. In the first place, it's reliant on, fossil fuel. Our economy is reliant on this. We cannot sustain this type of lifestyle. And something that we should always be remembering, ang buhay, may meaning yan eh, for the humans. May lalim dapat yan. Ngayon, kung tayo umaasa lamang, ang ating kasayahan ay something that is so much dependent on material gain or material resource. And these resources are just passing and they're limited. But we are not this way.
Yes.
We cannot be happy with
Just that.
Things.
No way.
Okay, may shinare naman si Miguel Vargas. Hello po, we just had our coastal cleanup and tree planting.
Yay,
Bitaog
good.
and talisay seedlings at the coast of the Lumpinas Oeste today.
Yeah, this is in La Union.
Oh, thank you very much.
This is a great thing to do.
Nice.
Keep planting.
And I can share you more beech trees eventually kung gusto ninyo so we can add to the diversity. And on the end of the day, the more diverse the forest would be,
The better for all of us.
or even in the coastal forest, a lot of us, pag inisip natin yung gubat, naisip lang natin yung bundok eh.
Oo.
But actually, there is a coastal forests.
And we need the trees here in the coast kasi napakainit pag walang trees.
Right. And
Yeah,
you
and
also-
it protects our coast.
Oh,
And you
yeah,
know that?
from erosion.
Yeah, it's ano yan,
And-
tidal protection.
Tidal
protection.
And also, maybe I want to share this. In the rural days of our country, majority of the medicinal trees did not come from the forest.
Oh yeah, nasa coast siya.
It came from the forest and the coastal areas.
That's why people ended up living by the coast. Ang dami, everything was there that they needed, including the medicines. They even for their clothes, they could get it from the
Nice to
coastal
know
trees.
that. Nice to know.
So anyway, again, to our listeners, our friends, and everybody else, the leadership, please, let's look at something that is more of sustainable. Yung Balik Probinsya program, I was quite excited when
tuloy natin.
that was being talked about. I said, siguro yung Balik Probinsya, ayusin na natin yung probinsya. Yung mga probinsya, yung mga farmers, papansinin na sila. But na-prioridad yung mga build, puro kalye ang ginawa. But now dapat sana plant talaga. Sinabi ng ating Department of Agriculture yon, but yet you will plant. You have to plan it in such
What
a
you
way.
will plant. Oo.
Yeah, you have to make it so that every province has its own master plan to develop, not just be tourist dependent, but actually be self-sufficient in food and shelter. Without these two, mahirap ang buhay sa mga probinsya. Kasi resources ng mga shelter programs ng mga probinsya nagagaling pa rin sa mga urban centers.
Okay.
Kaya nga nakita natin sa pag nagkaroon ng sakuna, ang hirap mag-rehabilitate ng mga probinsya na naka-isla.
Oo. Yes.
Kasi no resources. They have to get their resources.
Dapat self-sufficient
Yes.
talaga.
This is something that we should always be looking forward to doing. And we have to be a part of it. Each individual have to be a part of it. We have to grow things. We have to learn to appreciate that most of this are all something that we are a part of and we can contribute to.
Yes.
Okay.
And then of course, you can tie up with some of our environmental programs. I'm sure you can help. You can contribute anything that you can to actually promote conservation of nature.
Yeah, this
and
is the
planting
time
more
for us to
trees.
build our communities this way. And we have to raise our children. The younger generation, look, they're so disconnected to nature.
Yeah.
Ayun, exposing our children.
The last
to
20
this.
years, yung generation na yan, halos disconnected sila sa nature. Sila nagagalit sa nature kasi, uy, may baha, uy, may init, uy, walang tubig, uy, ang daming ganun ng issue.
Their ideas, they need to fight with nature instead
Yeah,
of...
it's not. Nature
being
provides
hooked
for
up,
everything we need. Nature, like now, for example, today, sukatin nyo, ilang beses kayo hihinga?
Naku,
Iniisip
hirap
ba natin yun?
magbilang.
Hindi eh. Ilang beses, kailangan nyo uminom. Kailangan nyo kumain. Saan galing lahat yan? Okay?
Okay.
And lastly, always yung pasasalamat na no matter what, ito ay lahat, whatever takes place that nature may provide all of us, ito ay
Grasya.
grasya
Yes,
ng ating
from the
Panginoon.
Lord. Yes.
Kailangan tayo magpasalamat all the time.
Okay, meron pang humabol ng bati. Si Rosalinda Lascano and Cesar Canonisado and Miguel Vargas again.
Oh, yes.
Sinabi niya yung si Cherry Cruz Directo, Chester Directo, Mariel Duque. Okay. And he said we would love to tie up with an with environmental programs. We're doing a daily coastal cleanup every morning in the Lumpinas, San Fernando City, La Union. The rubbish are too much.
I know that.
We can empathize with you. We know how difficult your work is.
Yeah.
You
Nice of you to be doing that.
Thank you so much,
Daily.
Miguel, and thank you so much to everybody. Please,
Yes.
you have a pleasant weekend.
Plant a tree and wake up with a grateful heart.
Right, grow your
Every
food
day.
and always pray in the morning. Remember the blessings, and then you offer your day always to God, and then you end your day in thankfulness that for the
everything He
productivity
gives
that
us.
you have. Let us be stewards of the environment. Let us be, caring for one another, our community, our family, everybody. You know, we are one big family in this world we live in. Okay? Thank you so much.
Okay, see you next week.
See ya.
Pangkalusugan, pangkalikasan, Gopalakas.